Everybody hear me? Cool. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for taking the time and making the effort to be here today. I'm asserting, as an attorney would, that this is going to be one of the best seminars you will ever attend. It is an advanced workers' comp seminar. But that's not all. We also are going to discuss employment issues. Mr. Wilhelms is going to talk about employment issues that come off of workers' compensation matters. You know, last year, as Mr. Denny indicated, we had a fact pattern that we developed partly from real cases that we have in the office and partly from the creative expertise of the attorneys in the office. We had very good feedback from everyone, and we appreciated that. That fact pattern generated all sorts of issues and legal doctrines that we discussed, and I don't know how to switch slides. There we go. Okay. We're liable to go backwards. I'm not sure. Which way? Do I go to the right? You're not recording all this, are you? Okay. All right. And by the way, I know some of you have heard this, so please don't give the answer. What's the difference between a lawyer and an accountant? The accountant knows he's boring. I'm setting the stage for the thing. What is the difference between God and a lawyer? God doesn't think he's a lawyer. So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to set the stage for you. I'm going to go back and review the fact pattern from last year so that you have an idea where we came from, what issues we discussed, and then I'll highlight what we might discuss. I'm not going to tell you exactly what we're going to discuss. We're going to maybe take some literary freedom, maybe change the dates a little bit. So, last year, as Mr. Denny indicated, we have 3 individuals. Fred and Archie are employees of Northwest Ohio Trash. They're garbage workers. And Florence was a traveling nurse. Florence, I don't need my glasses. I can't see anybody now. Florence was traveling to her first appointment of the day. Now, Northwest Ohio Trash had a personnel policy that Archie and Fred signed. And the policy said you can't talk on your cell phone during work hours for personal reasons. Florence ran right into the back of the truck, pinning Archie, crushing his legs. It changed the life of Florence and Archie forever. Forever. And we'll talk about how that changed their life. So even though we're laughing, we're joking, it would behoove you to take this real serious. Can you imagine Florence, someone who has spent her life helping people? She spent money to be trained as a nurse, and all of a sudden she crashes into the back of a truck, pinning Archie, who's screaming in front of her. So all 3 of these people, Fred, Archie, and Florence, filed workers' compensation claims. And we discussed last year several issues that flowed out of that. The issue, one of the first ones we talked about, was whether or not Archie's injury was compensable. See, Archie was talking on the cell phone. He wasn't supposed to be. He had been talking to his wife. Definitely not supposed to be talking to his wife during work hours while on the cell phone. About a bicycle that he was going to take from somebody's curbside, which is another violation of the rule. Archie was crushed at that time. Is that an injury that arose out of employment? We talked about that last year. We talked about whether Florence's injury was compensable. Florence, we found out, as you might remember, had taken prescription methadone. Was she stoned during the time of the accident? Was her injury compensable? Were there counterclaims? And we talked about that. Did Archie have a claim against the traveling nurse company? Did Florence have a claim against Northwest Ohio Trash because none of the flashing lights were working? Archie wasn't wearing a reflective vest. We talked about whether Archie was permanently and totally disabled, whether he had loss of use of his legs. Was there a VSSR liability? Was there subrogation? Were Archie and Florence entitled to temporary total compensation? Well, you know, were they fired? Where are they now? As in real life, time marches on. It affects all of us. The claims in Ohio, some people say never die. And here we are a year later, and they're still cranking along, all three of these claims. What are we going to talk about today? Well, let's go employee and claimant by claimant. Archie. Archie ended up having both legs amputated. As I said, very serious injury. In the blink of an eye, Archie's life was never the same. He had been awarded statutory permanent total disability, and we talked about that. That means he can get compensation for the rest of his life. But medicine being what it is, there was a new procedure with a new prosthesis that arose a few months after the injury. He returned to work July 30th, 2015. That's a date I'm picking. Somebody else may pick a different date. It's literary license. I sort of wrote this. I'm going to change it. And Tybo Wilhelms is going to use these dates. So we're going to say return to work July 30th, 2015. He has this surgery. Now, consider he's getting statutory permanent total disability. Can he get temporary total compensation? Imagine this. The surgery was successful. Archie can walk, although not real well. There's a functional capacity evaluation that finds that Archie can do sedentary work, he can do light duty work. He had returned to work in a wheelchair as a telephone operator. Now he can do all kinds of work. Okay? Not, he's limited, but he can walk around, he can do light lifting. Functional capacity evaluations performed. His doctor releases him to return to work, and lo and behold, Archie doesn't come back to work. What do you do with Archie? Is he an employee? Is he not? Can he get temporary total compensation after that? It's an issue we're going to talk about with Archie. Florence. What a tragedy. Florence. Where is Florence now? Well, as you may remember from last year, Florence had pre-existing back problems. She was taking prescription medication as prescribed by her doctor, but there was some excessive levels in her blood. Florence was terminated for violation of the drug-free work policy. She is a nurse, and she was traveling, and she didn't tell her employer about taking the medication. She has filed now for substantial aggravation of pre-existing generalized anxiety disorder and associated temporary total compensation. Her life is a mess. The question is, can you have a claim for substantial aggravation of a pre-existing psychological condition? We're going to talk about that. What about her drug levels? Would that preclude her from getting temporary total? What employment issues does this case present? She was terminated, by the way, after she filed her claim application. Well, what about Fred? This one's always been, Fred's case has always been a little disconcerting to me. Fred's sitting in this big trash truck, and now he's claiming like a whiplash injury. Well, how's that happen? Yeah, a little car hitting this big trash truck, but the claim has been allowed, and it's been allowed for substantial aggravation of pre-existing degenerative disc disease. The reason we know that is because Dana Quick last year talked about accident investigations. And what do you do when a claim is filed? And she found out in 2013 that Fred had surgery, that he has had cervical problems for a long time. And after that, Fred has been treating with a chiropractor. Nevertheless, the commission allowed the claim for substantial aggravation of pre-existing degenerative disc disease. This case is coming up. Do you file an appeal into court? Do you file an appeal in Florence's claim to court? What issues are appealable to court? Rob Solt is going to talk to you about what do you do to get the substantial aggravation portion back to what I call pre-injury status. How do you do that? And is that finding appealable to court? So now this seminar, the second half of the seminar, we're going to focus on court issues. Unlike what we do a lot of times, we talk about current topics, hot topics in workers' comp. We're going to talk about in-depth court issues. Why do you litigate a case? Why do you take a case to court? What's the reason? Why do you spend the money to do that? What do you have? What advantages do you have taking a case to court? What discovery can you do in court that you can't do in the administrative agency where the files just go fast, fast, fast? So Mark Barnes and Greg Denny are going to talk about court issues. I do not have 30 minutes to talk to you about, even though I'm scheduled for 30 minutes. So I'm going to defer my time to other speakers here who are going to talk to you on substance. I did hear a sigh, collective sigh of relief from everyone. I would like to say before we introduce the next speaker that I heard a lawyer talking the other day, and he had a trial scheduled, and he walked into the courtroom and he saw his opponent. And he went up to the lawyer and he said to her, "Are those people over there, are those your witnesses?" And she said, "Well, yes, they are. I disclosed them in discovery." He goes, "Well, I just give up. You're going to win. I've used those witnesses twice before."